many challenges like and technological shifts, and to survive the constantly transforming media ecosystem, public broadcasters have sought to maintain their core values while also adapting to new operating models in a global media environment that increasingly prioritizes networked communications. Driven by advancing digitalization, the rise of big tech, and the growing focus on commercial gains, the public service broadcasting transitioned into service media. The session will focus on the role of digitalization as it continues to revolutionize the production and consumption pattern of the media ecosystem. I have an exceptional panel joining me here today. If we can just we are experiencing some technical issues. All right. I have an exceptional panel joining me today, and I'd like to, without further ado, introduce them to all of you. I have Simon Spanswick. He's the Chief Executive at the Association for International Broadcasting. Thank you so much for being with us here today. Grégoire Ndjaka is the Chief Executive Officer of the African Union Broadcasting. Thank you so much for being with us here today. Jose Lopez de Araujo, he is the Director of International Relations of the Portuguese public broadcaster. Thank you so much for being with us here today. And last but not least, Alfonso Hurtado Ruiz. Thank you so much for being with us here today. He's the Head of Cooperation and Contents at Televisión América Latina. Thank you all for being with us here today. Now, I want to start off with a broad question because I really want to get a sense of how various broadcasters are being and dealing with the ever-changing digitalization of the media world. Simon, I want to start off with you. How is your company dealing with the ever-changing world of digitalization coming from that traditional public broadcasting system?
Teşekkürler and günaydın. And I have to admit, I want to start with an apology. Two apologies. Firstly, for my appalling Turkish pronunciation, so forgive me for that. And I apologize as well for being yet another middle-aged male panelist. I think we'd like to see more women up here.
Yes.
So my apologies for being the wrong gender today, but I hope you'll put up with me. So your question, we represent broadcasters all over the world, from New Zealand through to North America. TRT World is one of our members. All of them are facing the immense pressures that the new expansion in digital media, digital platforms, the new players coming in are representing and posing to them. And broadcasters are really struggling to work out how to deal with this, how not to disenfranchise older members of the audience that are not so tech savvy, that don't constantly look at their mobile phones, that aren't constantly switched on, and how they attract younger audiences to their services. It'd be quite interesting. Can we just do a quick poll of the audience?
Sure.
Hands up. It's a bit difficult to see from here because the lights are quite bright, but let's see if we can do this. Hands up, those who switched on the radio first thing this morning to get the news.
Who switched on the radio to get the news? I see one hand up there and 2, 3. I think that's about it.
What about television? How many people watched the telly this morning?
TV?
Not many.
3, 4, 5.
There are a few more hands going up. How many looked at the news on their iPad, mobile phone, or what have you?
There we go.
There you are. That's the challenge. So traditional broadcasting is under threat. So I think there are very clever people are sitting down in broadcasters all over the world to work out how to address that dilemma. There's no one size fits all, because every different media market has different priorities, different needs. Places in parts of Asia won't be the same as parts of Europe, for example, in terms of digital penetration, access to information. Those are the sort of challenges I think we face.
Right. Grégoire, I want to bring you in because, as Simon just mentioned, traditional public broadcasters are under serious threat as we see the media industry digitalize and more technologies come to the forefront. How long do you think newspapers and traditional journalism will last for, and what effects do you think that its complete termination will have on the new media industry?
Okay, thank you very much, Madam. I will not raise an apology as my friend did. I will start by congratulating the head of state of Turkey for what he did for this, in this conflict, in particular with this corridor for food and so on. I'm saying that because as an African, we leave the situation very, very bad when all things were blocked. We had a lot of problems, and taking the floor here, I would like to start by congratulate him, and congratulate, and also congratulate TRT for this very, very good organization, which gives me the floor to talk about what is happening with digitalization in Africa. So coming back to your question, I would like to say that the digitalization has changed all the ecosystem of media in Africa. And at the beginning, we have a lot of media, a lot of newspaper, a lot of radio station, and so on. With the digitalization, we find that there is a drop in the number of newspapers because most of them cannot cope with the new ecosystem of advertisement, for instance. And we saw also that, as a good point, there is a sort of change in the way of managing information when you are with this ecosystem. For instance, we had before newspaper with long editorials and things like that. Now, if you want to be, if you want to impress your public, you must have short news. Mm-hmm. This is on editorial base. Short news, you have to privilege what we call breaking news in our language, and we also have to know that people can have the information from many other sources. So when you are trying to make this job, you must make sure that the information you are giving is good, you have already is credible, and you have verified the fact. So these are the changes you can have in the system and so on. But there is another thing also. We saw that tabloid, for instance, they changed their way of doing. You will not have tabloid as they were before. Now they have gone from tabloid to luxury media with a lot of color, a lot of pictures, so, which can attract people, the attention of people. When you take your newspaper like this, you don't have time to go to be reading very long papers. Short, they must be short, go directly to the point, give you the information. That's the other way of doing. And there is also another aspect, which is not a good aspect of it, is the development of fake news within this ecosystem. Now you have a lot of fake news. Somebody can sit in his room with his phone or with his computer, and he build an information. Mm-hmm. So as a journalist, you have to take your time to verify facts, to see exactly what you are saying, and to see if it's credible. The other aspect of it is on the private life, freedom. You see that there are people who can use this new weapon to tarnish the images of other people. And this can be found in particular in the political field and in the sport, football, things like that. You find some news which has nothing, no link with the reality. This I can say that is the sum up of the new ecosystem with digitalization in Africa.
Well, we're going to get into fake news and disinformation in depth a little bit later on, but I want to bring in Jose now because television as a tool of mass communication, do you think it's still effective? We just conducted a poll. I mean, everyone on their way here used their phones to get access to the latest headlines. Very little people, maybe 3 in the audience, opened their televisions. Little to none listened to the radio.
Good morning. Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank TRT and especially my dear friend, Director of International Relations, Mustafa Saritas, my colleague in EBU, for inviting me to be in this fantastic forum. Answering your question, I start my career as a young journalist 47 years ago, working on PSM, on public service media. So I have crossed from black and white to color, from film to video and to file, from different distribution systems, from terrestrial television to cable to satellite to IP. And none of these directions in the television history was so important like this one that we are crossing right now. And this disruptive system coming with the marriage from the web and TV, from video and web platforms, became a problem, not only generally for the industry of television, but mainly for the PSM, for public service media, because we carry a strong responsibility regarding the values that we preserve. What can we do facing that? We are losing relevance. I mean, the public service media is losing relevance all over the world and especially in Europe. Europeans are the most important consumers of social media in the world. It's not United States, not Asia, it's Europeans. More than 80% of the Europeans use daily the social media. So the social media, with the distribution of videos through those platforms, so these platforms, becomes also a threat to PSM and to the traditional television industry. I'm talking about being seated in the living room, looking to the screen, and waiting for the traditional grid of programs and the days of the week that we know that we have some series or some films. It finished. That's no more like that. So all the structures of the PSM in Europe is organized in the old way. So we have departments, we have silos, we have channels, one channel against the other, competing inside the organization. So it's the hand. We cannot do that anymore, because what is important right now is the content, not where is the content. The people, they go and catch the content. So the problem is the content, how we offer the quality of the content that we can offer. So, in my opinion, public service media has to move and to change the organization very, very quickly. We have not 5 years, neither 3 years. We need to move right now. Otherwise, we are going to lose the relevance. We can have a lot of money, we can have money, funding from the governments or from the fee. That's no care. The problem is not that one, it's not only the funding, it's the way we are organized and how we react to these new challenges.
We're going to get into the know-how later on in the discussion. I want to bring Alfonso in because, Alfonso, we're seeing various technologies in our day, and it's drastically changing traditional public broadcasting. How do you think new technologies changed television viewing overall around the world, and how have companies like yours digitalized in their broadcasting process?
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks to TRT for inviting us. Televisión América Latina, Latin America Television, we are the network of public TV channels in Latin America from Mexico till La Tierra del Fuego, Deep South, Argentina and Chile. So we are producing content every day. Our situation is a little bit different than our colleagues. Of course, new technologies have, I'm sorry because I prepared these ideas and text. I feel comfy reading. My English is a little bit rusty, so I'm gonna read it for you. Of course, new technologies have changed the traditional way of watching television and have evolved towards new formats to serve audiences in this competition for people's attention. In this sense, in Latin America, we have expanded and increased television content in a positive way because we have forced our production teams to create attractive formats with stories adapted in narrative and duration that can be seen both on a traditional screen and on a tablet in any time of the day. It is a natural process because public television in Latin America has been itself, for years, a platform for quality audiovisual content that is in the process of digitizing programs produced years ago that now work very well on VOD. Channels from Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, and of course Mexico are rescuing their classic programming and have reprogrammed it on their digital channels with good results because well-told stories remain over time. There are programs of all genres and for all audiences whose content is social, children, feminism, diversity, inclusion, and cultural memory, and that is not offered by commercial TV. This feature of public television is ideal for the citizen viewer of the 21st century because he chooses his own entertainment. And regarding new formats, the digitization of the process begins from the writing and research of the content. We have already produced several series and formats where, from before going out to film, the format and narrative for social networks such as TikTok and YouTube are taken into account, so that filmmakers and scriptwriters must tell their stories, including these new channels of communication. Classic storytelling is added to the narratives of the digital world, such as the vertical format, as we were saying this morning, to be viewed on phones, and that only adds to the quality content that is already constantly being produced. The teams are now multitask, and new generations, bring their digital knowledge. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Right, so bringing that digital knowledge into the traditional way of things were done about 10 years ago, I'm assuming. 10 years is an accurate assumption of when we weren't as digitalized as we are today. Simon, I'm not going to ask you which outlet you think is more influential, because the digital media outlets are without a doubt more influential in our day, but do you think that there's a fine balance that could be put between the two?
Yes, because I think it's all about trusted brands, and public service media organizations have been trusted brands that have been built up over the last 70, 80, 90, 100 years. And we're seeing lots and lots of new players coming on, lots of alternative sources of information. But as our colleague from Africa has pointed out, it's about reliability and what is actually truth, what is potentially fake. And we're seeing new players who are entering the market who want to be players in the news industry, for example. There's a new one just launched in America called Semaphore, set up by the former editor-in-chief of Bloomberg News. And they've tried to position themselves as being the new voice of the digital era, providing news and information about America and about the world. but they've only got a budget of about $70 million. Now, $70 million is a lot of money to you and me, but in the news industry, it's a drop in the ocean. So how can you actually effectively cover the world for 70 million compared with the budget that RTP has or the BBC has or TRT? It's not easy. So, but they are making a lot of noise, just as Netflix is getting huge press coverage, particularly this week with the Harry and Meghan release. They are managing to get the attention of the world about programs they put out, but they're not producing content across multiple platforms, radio, television, digital, as public service media organizations do 24 hours a day, nationwide and internationally. So there's this huge imbalance, if you like, between new players and traditional public service medias. And we've heard PSMs are working very hard to try and get rid of the legacy of film back 47 years ago to this new everything. Everybody wants information constantly. Audience expectations have changed. People, as we saw just now, use their phones. Mm-hmm. They want to get information. They're not waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. Right.
You mentioned the budget. Isn't it a lot cheaper in the new media industry to produce content? Because I have friends, for example, on the other side of the world in Australia, producing content on their phone and sending it to networks here in Turkey where they can air it on their platforms. So it's actually as simple as that. So do new media companies really need more than $70 billion or $1 million?
It depends what they're trying to do. If you're trying to be a global news organization, mm-hmm. which Semaphore has suggested it wants to be, mm-hmm. I think you do, because if you're trying to send people properly protected to cover the war in Ukraine, with all the security and so forth that you need, because you can't, as an editor-in-chief, put people into the field and potentially have people dying mm-hmm. because they're not properly protected. That costs a lot of money. That is not cheap. Yes, of course, stories from down the road, they get people because they're human interest stories, I suspect, mm-hmm. rather than hard news about, I don't know, political stories in Australian politics. So yes, that can be done relatively inexpensively. But to do news that certainly I've grown up with over the last umpteen years, that goes into depth, provides the context, I think that's a different ballgame, and that is expensive. You need people, you need the resources, you need the researchers, you need the access to archives, all sorts of things to try and provide a fully rounded picture to give people what they want, whether it's in a short bite or a long read.
Right, Grégoire, I want to bring you back in because the practice of gatekeeping within media organizations, whether it be traditional or virtual, it exists, and it will continue to exist, but in different forms. I'm assuming the way gatekeeping is executed in the digital world is a lot different than it would be in traditional public broadcasting.
Yes, by moving from newspaper, thank you. By moving from newspaper to the digital press, the profession of gatekeeping has also undergone profound changes. For instance, it's difficult in Africa now to imagine a media professional not knowing to use or to use or manipulate a computer, to collect information on digital platform, to track down fake news. It's not possible. It's no more possible. You have to master this aspect, this new aspect of the profession. For instance, tracking fake news. You have to master it if you want to work as a professional. Now, many things have changed. For instance, with the advent of internet, a new press has seen a daylight, which makes some people say that the press has not started a new chapter, but rather another history of the press is being written. It involves the use of new tools, social network, high definition, for instance, streaming, smart TV. All those things are new in our continent, but we have to do with it because we have to exchange news. We have to make content from Africa which will be broadcast in other medias, in Europe, in America, and so on. So we have to do our best to work and to reach the good standard, the standard which will be acceptable by other nations, by other continents. But if you want to work, for instance, with TRT, you have, in Africa, you want to produce, you have to know that TRT produce only high definition, can broadcast only high definition. So you have to make an effort to reach that level. So in close to 10 years, internet user, for instance, in Africa, that's another big transformations, have taken control of the information. In Africa now, you must, when you are a professional journalist, you must know that you have to produce also for internet. You have to go into internet and look for information, but at times you have to use also your digital platform to broadcast some of the content. So in this ecosystem, nobody is a follower. Everybody is an actor. Everybody has something to do. Everybody has something to bring. But at the end of the day, what is important is the reliability of the information. You have to make sure that all what you are saying, all what you are writing is exactly the truth. Because if you write something which is wrong in the morning, 1 hour after, you will see people who will bring the good information, and you lose your credibility.
Right.
So all the ecosystem is moving. Everybody has to make an effort. And at the end of the day, the people who are the winner of this is our listeners, our viewers, and people who are reading what we are writing. So I think that the gatekeeper, because the gatekeeping, one of the biggest role of the journalist is to give good information to people, to say exactly what is the truth. And we can see that the profession has taken a lot of consideration with all that, because the information, if you say something which is wrong, somebody will come just near you and tell you what you said there was not based on facts. So we have to improve, and we have to become much more serious in delivering news.
Right. Misinformation and disinformation is a serious issue that a lot of consumers need to take into consideration when they're scrolling through their phones, because people really still do rely on public broadcasters to bring them credible information to their feeds. Jose, during the forum, discussions on misinformation and disinformation have been held. And with the digital age, we are seeing an increase of disinformation online, as I mentioned. Public broadcasters do have complete control over the accuracy of the information that they're feeding to consumers. Do you think just for that reason alone, public broadcasters will survive much longer than anticipated?
I hope. Well, coming back to the idea of what is going to happen to the traditional radio and television, and this poll this morning is quite impressive about how the people get the news and the information. 3 days ago, Tim Davis, Director General of BBC, announced it, and for us in Europe, BBC is a lighthouse of PSM, announced that in 5 years, they are going to close many TV channels, and that we must be prepared in 5 years around to forget completely television and radio as the traditional media we have known for 100 years, for BBC 100 years. So I am not so pessimist like Tim Davis. I believe that the things are changing very, very quick. But I myself, I can imagine to watch this evening game with Portugal and Morocco in my iPhone. I want to be seated in the living room with my friends and family, drinking and watching the game and sharing the emotion of the show. And this is with football, but it could be with the Eurovision Song Contest or other big events. But anyway, coming back to your question, we are the guardians, we are the defenders of the independence, the accurate journalism and the news, the PSM. So we feel that responsibility. But the question is not from our side, it's from the other side, from the audience. They catch the news and the information as they want. And the cell phone is really the winner. Forget about iPads or the computer. Well, it's also tools and devices that we can use to get information. But nowadays, the main device is the cell phone, the mobile phone. So I see and it's not only a question of the young people. We have that idea, it's only the young people that look to the cell phone. My daughter is 25 and she watches films and series in the iPhone. It's incredible. I don't understand why, because she has the Netflix in the screen, but she likes the cell phone, the mobile phone. For the news, it's more practical. If you are on the subway or if you are waiting for something, you go to your cell phone. You are not bringing your iPad on the pocket. But the cell phone, the mobile is really the most important device to get news, video content. And we can see it by a study, a very recent study from EBU, European Broadcasting Union, that they conclude that people of between 18 years old and 64, they use around 20 minutes a day the mobile to get the news or information or to watch something, video clips from YouTube or whatever. But the young people, till the 18, they use daily 1 hour 10 average, 1 hour 10 minutes average of mobile consuming video.
And that's under 18?
Under 18.
Oh, wow. So
it's a big difference. And we can say, oh, well, but it's only a question of generation. No, because these young people, they are becoming adults, so older people, and they are going to continue to consume the same way. So we must be very, very attentive regarding that. About the fake news, and that it's not only the question of the fake news, it's because the fake news, they are distributed through the social media. And so the people, they just forward something, or they share with other friends or with groups in WhatsApp videos. And nowadays, so the digitalization was fantastic. It was fantastic. I can tell you, my company is a very small company. We are a very small country in Europe. The last 3 years exactly, we have created 2 different projects on the digitalized domain area. We created RTP archive, so we put all of our archive of 70 years online for free. We decided to do that. So with metadata associated and with a very good search engine. So you go you introduce Word, you can select criteria by programs, by periods, and you get all the news and all the videos for free. You cannot download, but you can screen anytime, how many times you want, all over the world. And this is a plus that PSM is offering for the same fee to the public. And the public, they react very, very well. And we create also a project called RTP Arena. Mm-hmm. Arena is e-gaming. e-gaming is growing all around the world, especially for the young generation.
Right.
So they like to play online with other colleagues from different points of the world. So we have created ITP Arena. We organize big events in stadiums. It's incredible how the people, they play in a big hall with with thousands of people together. It's like a football match or something like that. So we need to create different offer on the digital, and we must continue preserving that independence and information very accurate, very precise, which is our tradition and our school, because the people, they can see fake news, they can watch fake news, they can go to different sources, but if the people, they want to check if it's really or not, usually they go to PSM just to confirm, which is nice.
Right. Alfonso, let me bring you in. Do you agree with Jose here saying that public broadcasters will always, if not at least for the foreseeable future, have people coming to them to verify the information that they have? What do you think could be done against the amount of fake news that we're exposed through today on digital platforms?
Well, we are not optimists. We are not pessimists. The title of this World Forum had a word we like, opportunities. The future of television will depend on well-told stories, creative storytelling, and audiovisual quality. And many of the programs produced by public channels in Latin America have a transmedia narrative and also represent citizenship and entertainment because they are the very reflection of ordinary people. They talk about topics that interest people, and that is why they have a long life on platforms like YouTube with thousands of views. There are many examples of Canal 11 and Canal 22, Channel 11 and Channel 22 in Mexico, Señal Colombia and Telepacífico in Colombia, Canal Futura in Brazil, or Encuentro and Paca Paca in Argentina. One example will be the documentary series Historias de Vida, Histories of Life, biographies of prominent Mexican artists and personalities, that was produced a decade ago, but is now still running on YouTube and iTunes thanks to a digital campaign to attract young audiences via Instagram and TikTok. And now even high school teachers use these documentaries to teach history, culture, and society topics in their classes. Proof that television is evolving is in the programs of the current World Cup, where we see a lot of influencers at late night shows who bring their respective followers to the television set and broadcast such content on their own social networks. But also, you can watch the entire show on YouTube as soon as its satellite broadcast ends from the comfort of your computer anytime, anywhere with Wi-Fi. The mode of transmission depends more than ever on the type of content and its audience. And coming back to your question about fake news, I got this text. Public media must be a guarantee of verified information. People should be able to trust them in every way, because their role is to provide public service, and that means reporting with proven data and numbers. For example, in Latin America, many of the public media did serious work during the pandemic. We, at Latin American Television, designed a plan for the exchange of children's content of educational and entertainment value, so that all girls and boys in our countries could have free and constant program options during the confinement that closed schools. These actions will be the key: cooperation, collaboration, exchange. We are open to partnership and co-production. On the other hand, a way to fight against the infodemic and fake news. We are not specialists like my colleagues in social matter of journalism, but a way to fight against the infodemic and fake news is through continuous training and learning for all the staff who work on our news channels and programs.
Right.
This year, we have organized several workshops and master classes on the subject, free of charge, for the entire public audiovisual community in Latin America. And doubts and questions have arisen, for sure. But it's important to talk about it and make it clear that there is a lot of pollution on the news and on social media messages, and at least we think that the next step is to talk about the matter directly to the audiences, the young audiences, the children, clearly explaining how, where, and why there is so much fake news.
Right. Well, I have about 5 minutes left on this panel session, so I want to direct my last question to Simon, because with dealing with misinformation, disinformation, fake news, whatever you want to call it, legal regulations are quite crucial here, isn't it?
Yes, but social media is not regulated in any meaningful way in just about any territory. It has the ability to cross borders, and we are seeing that fake news can move around the world in essentially the blink of an eye. And that's where I think it's important that trusted sources are able to do the same. They're able to harness the platforms, whether it's TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, whatever else comes along, to ensure that their content is there. And there are initiatives like the Trusted News Initiative, which Google is playing a part in running, to ensure that public service media and other trusted publications from the New York Times to others have a sort of seal of approval, if you like, that demonstrates just how trusted and reliable they are. And just going back to one of the earlier points, for the survival of public service media, relevance is key. It's all about public service broadcasters, media companies, binding nations together. If you're a public service media organization in whatever country, one of your objectives should be to bring the country together, whether it's through participation in the Eurovision Song Contest here in Europe, putting out big ticket shows like Strictly Come Dancing in the UK, which has spawned Dancing with the Stars around the world, which becomes watercolor TV that everybody talks about. And it's about making yourself relevant across drama, across entertainment, across music, and across news. So it's a whole panoply of stuff that public service media does that no other organizations really do.
Right, and Gregory, you want to add to that?
Yes, I want to add, I have 2 or 3 things I want to add. First of all, in the context of Africa, we see clearly that if you need good information, reliable information, you have to go to public service media. Because you have well-trained journalists, you have an editorial policy, and people who knows what they have to do. As my colleague said, one of our objectives is to bring everybody together and to bring peace in the country. And this is very, very important in the context of Africa, where you can have a country with more than 300 tribes, people talking different languages, but having different interests, but living in the same country. In particular, when we deal with politics, it's very, very important. So the digitalization can become a very, very dangerous thing in that context, where everybody can say what he wants to do. But public media have the obligation to bring everybody together within the country, and to make that everybody should live in peace and accept other people. The other things this digitalization brought is the freedom from Africa. You know, for many years, people have been talking of Africa as a continent where you have only diseases, where you have only war, where you have only hunger, which has nothing to do with the truth. In Africa, you will find people who are fighting to earn a living. Mm-hmm. You will find people who are fighting for development. In Africa, you have people who are fighting for the interests of the continent. But at times, these big medias, I'm sorry to say that, coming from this part of the world, when I say part of the world is Europe, America, they don't emphasize on that aspect of people working and people trying to earn their living, develop the country. That's why at the level of our union, African Union of Broadcasting, we have developed a news exchange center in Algeria. With this news exchange center, we want to write our history as African. We have to tell to people exactly what is happening in Africa. And that's why we appreciate the cooperation with TRT. Mm-hmm. Because we have started planning for Africa Forum Media with TRT. But the first thing we notice is that the subjects are selected by we, African. The subjects are selected by we, the speaker will be selected by we, and it's very, very important. Because at times when I reach in forum or fora like this, I listen to people talking about media in Africa. I ask myself, is it Africa or they're talking about, or they're talking about their dreams? Mm-hmm. We must know, everybody must know that Africa is, in Africa today, people are working for development. People are working for their interests, and the best thing to do is to allow Africa to take care of itself and develop itself. Media should work for their development, and I think we have a lot of things to bring to this world civilization, because we have our identity, right. We have our realities, and other people, I think they need also to know exactly what is our identity and what we think on the world and the way the world is growing. Thank you.
Right, determining the narrative is significant indeed. All right, I'm going to have to wrap up this panel with that. Simon Spanswick, thank you so much for being with us here today. Gregory Ndjaka, thank you so much for being with us here today. Jose Lopez Araujo, thank you so much for being with us today. And last but not least, Alfonso Hurtado Ruiz. I hope I pronounced all of your names correctly. Sorry for any mispronunciations, but thank you all for being with us here today. It was a pleasure speaking to every single one of you.